Welcome back to the 40 Portal, a coming of aging story told by 40 real women. I'm your host, Catherine Zach, and this episode is a foundational one. If you've been listening and thinking, okay, but what is the portal exactly? Then this is the episode for you. This is the episode you can send to your friends. This episode explains it. Even though, if you know, you know. My guest today is Becca Piastrelli. She is a writer, a teacher, a re-villager, a farmer, a mother, and in her words, a witch. Me too. She lives down the road from me in the Hudson Valley, and she is one of the reasons that this podcast exists at all. Last summer, as we were both standing at the threshold of turning 40 in July, our birthdays are 2 days apart, Becca and I started voice memoing each other deep questions, vulnerable ones, the kind you don't ask or answer unless you are in a very safe space. And somewhere in those raw, messy exchanges, the 40 Portal was born. And I didn't quite know at that time what the seed of this energy would blossom into, but it quickly became a literal notebook that I brought to my 40th birthday. And here we are 9 months later, and that seed of an idea has bloomed into this podcast, where the conversation is both getting even deeper and wider, and I am here for it. And so is Becca. And now, so are you. In this episode, we talk about liminality and what the portal feels like, and about being a blessing of our ancestors, about erotic awakenings in long-term monogamy, about gathering with other women as medicine, and about ritual and ceremony and how you actually change. Near the end of this episode, something extraordinary happens with the 40 Portal birthday notebook. I'll let you experience that for yourself. Broad, tender trigger warnings. Animal death during birth is something we talk about. There's a brief mention of Epstein in the context of beauty standards, and the content is just generally delightfully spicy. So maybe go grab your headphones. Welcome to the portal. And before we dive in, if you are listening, if you have been listening, or you're listening to this episode and you're feeling very called to sit with a circle of women in real life, I've got 5 spots left for my portal retreat in June in the Hudson Valley. I'll link to it in the show notes. Answer the call if you're feeling called, because you won't want to miss the portal retreat. Okay, let's dive in. So there would be no 40 Portal podcast without you. You know that, right?
I do kind of know that, actually.
Okay, so and you tell me, because my memory is not as sharp. And I don't know who said it first, which of us used that phrase first, but I also know that in the summer of 2025, which was the summer after 2024, which was like the all four summer, where like we were all introduced to this like coming of aging genre of like, holy shit, midlife. And so 2025 was the summer that both you and I turned 40, very close to one another. And in the weeks leading up to that, we just started voice memoing each other, as we do, as like this, it's the superpower of women, elder millennials, like it's how we move the world. And we just started asking each other like really deep questions and answering them back, and kind of like being a little, I mean, pretty vulnerable, I think, in our answers. And at some point, I understood that what you and I were doing, we were in the 40 portal. We were in the
We were.
And then that inspired me at my birthday party to just continue this kind of very raw, vulnerable question and answer, call and response that you and I were doing, and open that up into this notebook. And like, I literally asked the women who came to like either put their deepest, darkest questions in here or the things that they were learning, like their wisdom that they had known. And I made this kind of arbitrary mark. If you were under 40, I wanted to know your questions. If you were over 40, I wanted your wisdom. Now that I'm 40 and a half, I'm like, oh, didn't quite unlock like overnight wisdom myself, but I do think that that divide kind of holds. I'm still curious about it. And then the book became this podcast. So you are the genesis of this. Our conversations are.
I think it's so, I've just been cheering you on this whole time with this project. And I really miss our prompting. That was such a special moment between us. I'd say it was like 3 to 4 weeks of probably every few days. And summer is so busy with children. And somehow we were like devoting time to responding to these deep prompts. And it was taking us, I think it was such a beautiful way to prepare us to cross the threshold of 40. And then being there at your gathering, your 40 celebration gathering, and having these conversations in person. I mean, most of my juicy conversations, it was such a good gathering. And I just had such deep conversations with women over 40, like not 40 and a half, but like over 40. And I just was like, this is so valuable. And then the way you were able to capture it and help breathe this out into the world, I'm just so grateful because, yeah, 40 is not a day. I can't believe you just said you're 40 and a half because that means I'm 40 and a half. And I'm like, I feel like I just turned 40. And it's a portal, right? It's a journey. It's an initiation. So I'm just so grateful you're doing this.
I haven't really asked many people this on the pod yet, but what do you have a working definition of portal? And if you don't, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I have a feeling that you have some language around that idea.
It's more of like I'm so visual. It's just the way my system works. It feels like a long hallway or cave. It's like, I think about birth. I've given birth before. I'm going to give birth again pretty soon, actually, at 40. And, I think about like the birth canal as like a major portal. And in birth, sort of like birth talk, it's talked about that way. Like it's not just an exit door. It's a journey through a long tunnel. That's the way I see it. And then at one point you emerge. And so I think a portal is an in-between space, a space of liminality and of like a different pace of time. Time is less linear. It can slow down. A space for reflection, a space for deep feeling, fear, euphoria. It's a place to really be present and not rush through.
That concept of liminality, I first read that word in my early 30s. I want to say, or maybe I was in my late 20s. I was somewhere between like 28 and 31. And someone had recommended the book by Terry Tempest Williams called When Women Were Birds. Do you know this book?
Of course, yes.
Yeah. And she talks about the concept of liminality. And I just remember being so struck because I was like, I'd never heard this word. I didn't know there was a word for this. And it is such a beautiful way to talk about what I would otherwise kind of call like the messy middle.
Yeah.
And so much of life is happening in this liminal space. And And the thing about portals too, at least that I'm finding, it's like it is a concept of liminality. It is an in-between, but they keep coming. Like it's not like you get through and then you're done. And that's kind of what you were hinting at too, like the seasonality, the cyclicality of things. Like it's very much representative of that way of moving through the world, I think, which is something that you are embodying in your life and your work too.
There's something about midlife. I don't want to speak for every woman in midlife, but I find there are themes that come up and a lot of head nods of like, at this point, we've had a few liminal spaces. We've had major life transitions. We've had moments where things have not gone according to plan. You know, so there's a real wisdom gaining here in being like, oh, this is special. This is important. This is something to take seriously, as opposed to like, why? I mean, I'm sure we still have our why moments, but there's a bit more of like, okay, I see how life works now.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, so I'm going to bring our listeners into the conversation too, so they know who that they're listening to, who I'm having this gorgeous conversation with. And the first question is, what is your name and your pronouns? But also, like, go a little deeper. Is there a story about your name? How does your name feel like it's part of your identity in this moment? Tell us that.
Hi, I'm Becca Piastrelli. My pronouns are she, her. And I live in the Hudson Valley near you. And I was born Rebecca, and that has never felt like me. Becca feels like me. And actually, I had a moment when I graduated from college, and I was like, I just need to be taken seriously as an adult and get a job. And I had a nose ring, which I still have. And I remember my mother's waspy cousin, who was like a venture capitalist, gave me a talking to and said, take out that nose ring and go by Rebecca, or no one will take you seriously. That was bad advice.
Can I tell you that, like, I got my nose ring like 2 weeks after I quit Big Law. So like I had listened to a lot of your venture capitalist aunts being like, I can't practice Big Law. Like I can't be a corporate litigator and have a nose ring. And meanwhile, I'd wanted one for 10 years and now like haven't looked back, you know, but it is, ooh, what is that? What is that? Why? You didn't listen to her. I was already.
Oh, no, I did. I took it out. This is a second piercing. I had a reclaiming. I took it out and I went by Rebecca for 6 months. It didn't work.
Wow. Okay, so you're already getting into this, but my next question is like, how would you introduce yourself if job titles, accomplishments, and labels weren't what you led with? You can layer them in later, but like, who are you below, beyond, before your life on paper? Not Rebecca.
Wow. I want to be like, I'm a witch. That's just what came through. Well, I wanted to be like, my pronouns are she, her, witch, but I didn't want to like offend in that way, but it just felt like it was coming through. Yeah, I feel like a real ancestral reclaiming of my magic. I come from a long line of women, you know, white European women who really stifled themselves and suffered. The stories I know, I don't really have a lot of triumphant ancestral stories of women in my lines, at least the stories that have been told. That doesn't mean the triumphs didn't exist. And there's a real way in which I see that word witch as just like being really bold and open and living out my blessings and privilege with a nose ring and you know, a truncated name. And yeah, like, yes, last night I was at a cocktail party and I had this moment where I was like, I'm talking a lot. I should probably stop talking. Like, I'm being too, what I mean by that is like, I'm being too excitable, I'm being too big. And then I was like, no, I'm like in my flow state. I'm feeling so good. And so my whole point with saying all of that is like beyond what I do and who I am and who I'm mother to or wife to is like, I am a blessing of my ancestors living out in ways they never could.
I think that one of the reasons I wanted to have these conversations publicly in the form of a podcast is not just my elder millennial DNA, wherein like we were the original like live journal babies. Like we've been doing this the whole time, you know, like we've been doing this the whole time.
Totally.
But it's like I think a woman in her 40s and therefore her 50s, her 60s, and probably, you know, all women of any age, we are so powerful, so strong, so magnetic, so big, so like able to access our flow state at like a deep root of ourselves. Not all of us have access to that, right? Like not all of us have some of us are listening to your aunt and like keeping our nose rings out. For many reasons, so many reasons and other reasons. But, you know, I think that is also really terrifying. I think we are potentially the most terrifying beings in the whole universe too. And like, that's why witch really fits to me. And I'm like, yes, yes, me too. Absolutely.
Yeah. It still comes up, like patriarchy still rears its head, and like these systems we live under try to push me down, you know, and successfully do, you know, it's like my sisters all over the world, but I'm just like, there's something about this midlife, like experience. A lot of women say like, you just give less fucks, you know, but it is true. I feel way more like on a mission and bold. And I have moments of contraction and insecurity, but I do feel on the whole much bolder because I'm like, we ain't got all day. Like here, we got to do it. We got to do the thing.
I'm going to form that into a question, which is like one of the things I ask, which is like, what are you learning to care less about as you get older? So you're like, I'm definitely giving less fucks. We don't have all day. Like, can you give us an example of that?
Okay. One of my trauma responses is fawning. So I am a people pleaser. I have anxious attachment. These are all terms that you might know or not know that help me understand myself. And it's like learned behavior from my family of origin. And so much of my life has been about conflict avoidance, harmony, and outsourcing my worthiness to what others think. Spoiler alert, that doesn't work great for the old satisfiability and love of self. So what I'm learning to like give less fucks about is being misunderstood or even unliked. Like I'm working on truly being okay with that being a thing in my life. People not understanding me, people judging me, people not liking me. It's a biggie.
I am familiar with this.
Are you?
I am familiar with this. I am walking a similar path.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. How old are you? Which you kind of told us. We've talked about it, but how old do you feel?
Okay. That's like a whole mind game. Because I have internalized ageism I'm working through around what I think or what I grew up perceiving a woman in her 40s to be or look like.
Great. That's one of my questions. It's like, what is a story you were told about a woman your age? So tell it to us.
40 definitely seemed old to me growing up. I think there's like the whole thing about like the Golden Girls were in their 40s.
Yeah.
I
think Blanche was like, I think she was like 49 or something.
Oh,
Blanche
okay. But they're in their 50s, which is even
they're in the 50s. Yeah.
Right. And like, you know, you and I grew up in the 80s and 90s and like faces have changed. But yeah, I definitely perceived 40 to be old. I think by like the culture standards, because I remember my mother having a fabulous 40s and she had me at 36. Like I just remember seeing her in like gowns and her like Estee Lauder blue eyeshadow and just like living it up, working. Like I was always, and she was in her 40s. And I thought she was like a hottie and so bodacious and a goddess. So like both of those are true. And so how old do I feel? It depends on the day. Right now I feel 59 because I'm giving birth in 2 months and it's so cold and dark and I haven't had enough sunlight on my face and it's dry. And I'm making that mean a lot of things about the creaky, achy body I have. And I'm like really yearning to feel youthful. What does that mean? I don't even know. But I yearn to feel it. I yearn to feel tight skinned and well rested and buoyant in my energy and body. And I think, yeah, I was just reading this article the other day about, it's kind of dark on the heels of Epstein files stuff around like our obsession with youth is like rooted in some like really messed up pedophilia stuff. And I was like, oh no, what do I do with that? And so I'm trying to decouple feeling younger with feeling like vibrant or hydrated or energetic. Like there are other words than young, but it's really caught up in my brain.
I mean, there's a whole there's a deep reckoning that you're referring to here. It's like so intense. And we love to say a lot of things. And it's really easy to say a lot of things, like especially on the internet and like behind kind of like this filter or distance of like internet anonymity. Like it's like, I don't know, we can say a lot of things. And yet I am so moved by what I actually see people living like around me. And I feel like another reason that this podcast exists, and I hope I'm starting to get some of these women on the pod, is that I've just had available to me really juicy, vibrant, alive, buoyant, open, possible, yet deeply steeped, like women in older years than I am, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, like that I get to see every day. And I'm like, I'm just so, and so as we inherit the mantle of like moving into the second half of life thing, I'm like, we talk about that. We can, but I also just want to see how I can, like, with my own lived experience, try to embody some of those qualities. Yeah. Without needing to be young. I don't know. I'm playing with that.
I'm so with you, actually. I wonder how much, because we're in a time where we consume culture on the media, internet places, that a lot of that informs our thinking and our beliefs, which is dangerous, frankly. But when we're out in the world and in our bodies, we can get proof otherwise, right? Like that we actually maybe aren't as polarized as we think, that actually humans are wired for care, not for conflict. And I'm with you. I spent the summer not only in like a deep portal reflection space with you, but also having virtual tea dates with women who were over 40 and in 50s and 60s who I see as hot, vibrant, fun, cultured, successful. Like I really tried to imprint that.
Yeah.
As I was preparing to like literally leap over the threshold from 39 to 40 to be like, look at what's possible, because I was aware of what I was being primed with by just consuming content
Mm-hmm.
and being a product of this culture.
Mm-hmm. So good. I wonder, and you don't have to answer this one if you don't want to. This isn't an official question, but like seeing how you're looking toward other women, you mentioned your mom, you mentioned these other women that are like important to you. How does your mothering like of your own child, is that coming online for you? Like what they are seeing, what you are giving, like do you think about that? I don't want to like share more about your life than you want to share.
Can you be more specific? I'd be happy to share. How
Oh,
my
like you
mothering what?
of your daughter is like, are you thinking about this?
About
What this
how
women are represented and what she's seeing? Like, I'm
yeah.
curious. Okay.
I'm a mother of a daughter every day.
Yeah.
Almost too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast episode, but yes, I think about it all the time. It's an interesting thing about like thinking about how my mother did it, the ways in which I did the things I didn't love, but also the things I loved. And she's also moved here now, so she's close. And then doing my best with my child, but yeah, it's coming up a lot. I just remember I loved watching my mother get dressed. So I loved watching my mother bathe and like wash her face, and like I helped her choose her jewelry, and my daughter loves that. So that's like a feminine practice, but it's also like my body right now is like very round, and I'm like, yep, come on in the shower, watch me take a bath, like. And she brushes my hair. I remember doing that the same for my mom. And I'm just like, there's an intimacy I want to encourage with her now. And then I just let her ask anything about my body. Like she's really worried about what will happen to my nose ring when I die. And I'm like, this is a big one. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to die, first of all. And she's like, well, will you go back to the earth with your nose ring? And I was like, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to
Their
stay in that with
questions.
you.
Yeah, their questions are so big. My youngest one is like interested in death right now. And I'm like, wow, you're 4. Yeah.
Oof.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But like great questions. Like a lot of like, yeah, where do we go? We come back. What, it's like he literally was like, we come back after we die, right? I was like, it's amazing and a marvel to see that like this entire theory and belief in a concept like reincarnation just like also just appeared to my 4.5-year-old who's never heard about that in like a formal way.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, my daughter too. Well, we live on a farm, so farm animals die. We had a cow slip on the ice last winter, and she was about to give birth, and it was rough. And I had my daughter a part of the burial. I'm like, should I keep talking about this? It was kind of gnarly, but that she started to give birth. And so it was very visually intense to see that she died trying to give birth.
Oh my God.
And I was like trying to shield my daughter, but then she just had so many questions and she seemed okay. It's like she can't handle a Disney movie, but she could handle that. And I was like, okay. And we did the burial and she like did a whole ritual. I didn't teach her. She just like found flower petals and wrote a card and like threw it down in the pit, and we watched the dirt go over, and she just like did it on her own and talks. And every once in a while we named the cow Artemis, and she goes, I really miss Artemis, but Artemis is happy. Artemis is really doing okay. It's like, good.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so much there. There's so much there. Well, that kind of that bridges me to one of my questions, which is like, where do you feel the most seen and the most safe and the most at home And like I asked that after your story because it's like, wow, there is like a kind of level of safety and being seen and like it's okay to express what you feel. Like that your daughter's like showing us, she's telling, I don't know, that she can witness this and share what her response is. Where does that come up for you? Are there places where you feel that way
Where I feel seen and
and
safe.
safe and at home?
I feel seen and safe and at home in gatherings of women. It used to not feel that way, but I think it's something that I was really nervous and like didn't feel trust around. I was in a sorority. It wasn't super great. I mean, it had good stuff, but it was a lot of like betrayal and gossip but I also was a Girl Scout and loved it thanks to my mother. So I craved it, but was scared of it. And so I've made a practice over the last like 15 years of my life to gather regularly, whether it's like a women's circle or like a conscious thing or just like a women's night. I find my nervous system craves it, especially because I live in like a nuclear family setting, just me, my partner, and my child. And it's not enough for my like village body. I know you know. And so I find I'm working on that with like men too. It's a little bit different for me. Like it takes a while to get to a place where I'm like trusted and stuff. But yeah, I just live for a gathering of women. Ugh, it's just so good.
I want to like stay with that for a minute because I think that there's probably a lot of women who are identifying with both that feeling and also like the earlier iteration of that, how you said you've had not great experiences and that it's been like a process for you to get to this place where that feels really nurturing and connective. And I just wonder if you have, I don't need like your best tips and tricks or what, it's not that, right? But like, is there some piece or like directive or instruction or some lesson that you've gleaned that has helped you transition from not always feeling like that was such a safe space to being like, yeah, that is good nutrition for me?
Iteration, like repetition, it soothes the nervous system. So, which requires bravery. Like if you have a bad experience, to like tend to that wound, but to not let it inform the rest of your practice. This is like for life, but like to show up again. So I just kept showing up. And then the experiences, like saying yes to invitations, basically. Saying yes to invitations, even if I was like awkward or uncomfortable or tired, because I knew the deeper root of my longing was like, oh, we live in a hyper individualized society where loneliness and isolation is peak in measurable history. Like humans are lonely. I'm one of those humans. And it's hard for me sometimes. I seek out ways to soothe it that aren't healthy. Let's try this. I'm just going to keep showing up. And through that iterative process, I've noticed a confidence in navigating the awkwardness better, ways to soothe my nervous system. I can more identify spaces that are going to be more well held than others. I can set expectations with myself. I am a better friend and communicator. You know, I'm less withholding with my truth. Like it's just practice. It takes time.
That's good. What is one thing that your 10 years ago self would be really surprised to learn about you today?
Okay, how spicy can I get?
As spicy as you want to be.
That like I would have this like incredible erotic awakening at 38, 39.
Wow.
Like and being in a relationship for 20 years. I've been in a committed monogamous relationship for 20 years. Like I think 30-year-old Becca thought, well, the 20s were it. And now let's try to make babies and blah blah. But no, that it's possible in a committed partnership, that it's possible within myself. And that a lot of women in their midlife have it. It's cool. Spread the word.
I want to say, like, is there like a little instruction you want to throw into that mix, or should people DM you or like find your stuff?
Oh, well, everyone's different. Smutty, romantasy worked for me. Smutty books in general. I think there's something about women and reading these stories that you can escape into that. I mean, and most of these books are written by women, and I think there's this really amazing thing happening in like the publishing world, in the writing world, in like I'm thinking about Heated Rivalry, that the sexy gay hockey show that was written by a woman. There's something around the culture being ready to turn its gaze to the female gaze around sexuality, which is interesting because we're also like under a really patriarchal, oppressive, dominant administration. But at the same time, there's this wellspring of, I believe, feminine eros coming through media and books. It's just what I'm seeing. And perhaps it's probably happened before. All Fours, perfect example, which was like kind of a messed up book, but it all got us like, oh, like it turned on something in us, and it's probably always been there. And the generations before us are like, we've been trying to tell you, but like, there's something happening that I love. Oh, and yeah, there's like this really great audio app called Dipsy.
Oh, I have it. Yeah.
Yes. And which is like erotic stories that you can listen to. And I'm just like, there's something happening. It's so great.
Mm-hmm.
It's we're taking care of each other's bodies.
I think that, well, two things I want to say. One is, I remember you suggesting sliding into my DMs because I asked a question and you were like, here are my favorite romantasy books. That was probably the All Four summer. But I also think it makes sense, like talking about this kind of like very restrictive patriarchal regime that we're in, and then like feeling that rising tide. I think that's probably something that has repeated in history too. And like how cool that we get, I mean, and terrifying and sad and terrible but we're a part of that moment. And there is this like meaty, juicy resistance that we can also live our way into.
Well, I think it's really, I've been reading Audre Lorde and Adrienne Mary Brown, who talk about pleasure activism. And it's like, they can never take that away from us. And just really like embodying our pleasure is like that really, I remember I read that maybe 10 years ago when like Trump was elected, and I was like, what's going on? And that was so helpful to me because I thought I had to harden because I felt unsafe and I felt like I had to harden. And then it was like soften into your pleasure, into your body. And I was like, well, that's scary. I don't know how, but I found out. And yeah, it can never be taken away from us forever. And that is so precious and special. And I love having conversations. Okay, one of the women I had a conversation with, she's in her late 50s, and she was talking to me about sex after menopause. And like, I was like, give it to me. And she was just like, it's not what they say. It's amazing. And she was framing it as like, it doesn't go. It's still ours to have and to hold as long as we can. And for a lot of us, it's a lot longer than you think. And I felt excited. I was like, great, I got more time.
Okay, maybe you've already talked about it, but what is like your favorite thing to talk about when it comes to getting older? Maybe you've already mentioned it. Is there anything else you want to add?
Right now,
into the
it's
mix?
Definitely sex and eroticism. If people can meet me, because it can be really tender. And then this idea of shedding away any parts of ourselves that no longer feel true, like parts of our identity or silent agreements we've made with the way we relate to really be like, that can be left behind. Like for me, it was, I had to prove that I was good instead of accept that I could be misunderstood. Like, and that's available to us anytime. Right. But like some things we're holding on to about ourselves just truly don't fit anymore. And then we're like, why am I still doing that? I don't have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it is complicated because the status quo is so sticky. And like you've talked about, like there is all these internalized, the claws are pretty deep on some of this stuff. But I feel like I feel a lot of resonance with that. And I also don't know, and this is like the data I'm trying to gather by the lived experience of really wonderful, but just, all of us just regular, ordinary women, like not necessarily a spouse. Like I'm not talking to anybody here because of what they've accomplished, right? Like I'm talking to women here because of just the virtue that they are here. And like that is enough. That has value. But I'm wondering, because I feel like, and maybe this is part of the portal nature of 40, like a lot of that stuff I was not even aware of or could not have imagined starting to shed or let go of until this point. And the other thing that I'm realizing too is LOL. It's not like I can snap my fingers and like, we good, we done, we're moving on, it's like, shit, this is taking this. And every time I feel like proud of myself in a moment, like, oh, wow, I behaved differently than I would have at an earlier point when I was still playing this role. Then like 3 months later, there's something else that like, wham, there's the lesson again,
Yes, I'm trained in ritual, and I teach about ritual, and I like to live my life with ritual, which doesn't actually mean I don't live my life with like robes and ornate things in my life. I'm like a pretty normal mom, but I think about from the framework of ritual and ceremony about how it usually doesn't take just one claiming to fully complete a pattern or a way of being or, sever, like cut the cord of the energetic attachment of a relationship. Like if you're looking at it from like a spiritual perspective, it's like, you're going to be asked again, are you sure? And it's an opportunity to check in with yourself to make sure you're sure. And so because I am still trying to unlearn like binaristic thinking about like, well, it came up again, I suck. Like, therefore, yeah. I'm bad at this. Something must be wrong. I must have done it wrong. But it's like, oh no, I'm just being checked in with, you sure? Oh, good. Okay, great. Tell me again. Like, oh, this is repeating. Okay. Are you like the aware, right? We're taught awareness is one of the most important and first things is like, oh, look, that's happening again. Huh. All right.
I spent the morning with a box of old journals, which was like illuminating and terrifying. I'm like coming back to the book that I've been working on for many, many years, but I know it's like a part of that is like really looking at that stuff. And I was thinking about this earlier when you're talking about like the content we consume. And so I'm looking at journals from like 2011, 2012, 2013, when the internet obviously existed and even social media existed, but dang, it did not have its claws in us the way that it does now. And I was pretty obsessively reading like, poetry from ecstatic poetry from 1,000 years ago. So a lot of Rumi, a lot of Hafez, a lot of Lala, like all these different, and I just was reading and reading and reading. And I don't have the lines in front of me, they're downstairs, but it's like this one Rumi poem that's like, why do you keep thinking that you are the problem? And it's exactly what you are describing. It's like, we hit that thing again. And it's like, oh, I'm the worst. I'm so bad at this. Like if I had a nickel for every time I have said, I'm so bad, I must be so bad at this. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, it's so good. I don't know. I'll find the Rumi lines. I'll put them in the show notes.
Please.
Okay. I want to move into the 40 portal because this is a big one. So every guest that I have on, I pull a question that has been submitted into the book or a piece of wisdom from someone who's over 40 that they've left behind. And when I have had guests on who have also written in my book, I always just pick something that someone else wrote, because this way the conversation gets bigger and bigger and bigger. We're like putting a third thing into the mix. But I have what you wrote, and I'm going to read it to you because something very interesting happened after you wrote this. And you don't even know because you haven't seen this yet. But like, so you wrote on this top half of the page, and someone picked up the book and saw it and wrote on the bottom half of the page. So this is direct from the portal. All you have to do is listen and then see what you think or what you feel.
Okay. Well,
2 days out from 40. I'm curious about this fear I have of becoming irrelevant, disappearing. Because I can see in our culture how as a woman ages, she becomes less visible and less valued. But I also have seen women in midlife and elderly years refuse to become invisible, refuse to go quietly. And I'm curious about what it takes to choose that and continue to choose that over and over. How do we as women refuse to disappear? Can I chime in on this? Question mark, arrow up to what you wrote. Is that okay? I think in a major way, we disappear from the aggressive societal gaze that has been so often thrust on us. We don't disappear from the spaces we seek out or the community we knit. I feel very seen by the people I want to be seen by. Am I less visible to random men on the subway or catcallers on the street or condescending men in Home Depot who ask if I know how to use tools? Yes, I am not visible to them anymore. Thank God. The headspace this invisibility gives me, it kicks ass.
that is so good. That is like so good. Like full body chills. So good. I mean, thank you so much to this person. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, what a gift that response is. And I'm so glad you said it on this podcast so many more people can hear it. Like, thank you. Like, what a relief. What a relief to not be seen by the condescending man at Home Depot anymore. And what it frees up. That's what I loved at the end there. What it frees up for us, because gosh, I'm just fighting for brain space every day. How liberating.
And I think it comes back to a lot of what you've been talking about too, just this idea, and like so beautifully too, like about choosing and feeling at home in spaces of like women gathering in like a safe and conscious way. Like this reminder of like the choices we have and this idea that we are more seen in the spaces that we seek out and the community we knit and the places where we want to be seen.
Oh, it feels like a prayer.
I guess it gets me thinking too, like about that choice to be, what do I do with that freedom? How do I spend more time in those places where that is happening? And how do I do that for others too?
Well, isn't Village Yoga one of those places? How beautiful to see how that like ties that loop, you know, for you.
Thanks.
Yeah. It's a special mission you're on. Like, really, I mean, requires so much devotion. And I feel like we all have that assignment in our own way.
I want to ask you something about that, like that assignment in our own way. I when you're reflecting that back to me, I'm like, I see that, right? But I often lose the plot on that. And I kind of, again, go through cycles of seeing it and not seeing it and all of that. I'm curious if you could articulate your own assignment, if you know what that is for you. And also like how someone could listen for that too, if they're not sure that
listen for their assignment.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I think assignments shift over time. I'm a believer in seasonal and cyclical living, and that your life can be a portfolio of many projects and many seasons. And that's not something all our ancestors had. I think about like the boomer generation of like careerists, legacy careerists, right? But we don't have to do that. And I'm not even talking about your work, you know. I think I very much feel like I have a very clear dharmic assignment. And that has come from being in silence with myself, slowing down, moving my body intentionally, and gathering in like conscious, safer spaces where I could hear it. So I don't think it's something you can force. I think it's something that comes from being receptive, and that takes practice in our lives, in our culture. But yeah, I really see my assignment as catalyzing like everyone's catalyzing. It's like a macro to a micro, catalyzing specifically women wherever they live to funnel their resources and energy and capacity towards revillaging in some way, and really seeing it as a mission that needs to happen like on every street corner, in every church basement, in every living room, on every farm, in every library, and that we all play our part in midwifing a new culture, which is very clearly coming through as one is unraveling, another one is being born. And that's why I like to gas you up, because I'm like, you're doing it. May you inspire many more to do their version of it. And scale does not matter if we are all doing it in our own way. Because some of us have tiny babies, and some of us have chronic illness, and some of us are taking care of our children and our parents. Some of us have inherited resources that we can use, and some of us are on a super tight budget, but it's all possible. I mean, free libraries and farm stands and yoga studios and like coffee shop meetups. Like there's just so many ways we can reknit ourselves. So that is like my very clear mission from at least for my 40s and 50s. I am so clear. And I spent much of my 20s and 30s trying to force the thing that wasn't ready to be known. But now I know.
Damn. That was good.
Yes, exactly. There it is. Exactly.
That's it. It's so good. Welcome to the portal, babe. Welcome.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So good. Well, I feel very lucky to be in it with you. Thank you. Thank you, Becca.
We've had such a special thing. Keep it going.
Becca. So good. That was everything. So, so good. Scale does not matter if we are all doing it in our own way. That really hit. A lot of things really hit in this episode, but I think I'm going to keep repeating those lines to myself. I feel like maybe I'm living those lines in real life right now a little bit. And maybe you are too. Maybe you are too. And if you are, and this episode moved you, if you felt that call to revillage, to gather, to refuse to disappear, I want you to know that there is a room being built for exactly that. I mentioned it at the top of the episode, and I will invite you again. The Portal Retreat is June 17th through the 19th, 2026 in the Hudson Valley. 3 days of the kind of conversation you just heard in real life, in community, with women who are also in the middle of it, asking the real, raw questions out loud and together. Space is limited and it is filling fast. So if you've been thinking about it, now is the time. Learn more and register at the40portal.com/retreat. And please, please, please add your voice to the portal too. The notebook is still open. You can head to the40portal.com/submit. Your handwriting, your contribution, your voice, it might just end up in someone else's episode. Thank you so much for being here. And one last thing. If you have a voice memo buddy too, someone that you're in this kind of call and response with, will you send this episode to her? And will you both subscribe and leave a 5-star rating and review? That's how the conversation gets bigger. That's how it keeps getting richer. Okay, thank you so much for simply being here.